Hello everyone, my name is Bethany and this is my channel Thany's Thoughts. Today I am going to be doing the Reading Habits book tag. I've seen it done a couple times. Hannah from Cozy Reads did it. I figured I'd give it a try, and it's something, it's pretty basic. It's kind of fun. Without further ado, I'll go into that. So the first question is, do you read at home or everywhere? We're in a quarantine, so lately, strictly reading at home. But when everything's normal and life is not terrible, I typically read everywhere. Typical day looks like audiobook on the drive to work. Sometimes I'll read my audiobook in my car. If decide to eat lunch in my car, I will have an audiobook on the way home, and then I'll either watch TV or read a physical book at night, and then my Kindle is usually in bed, and usually at night and or in the morning and the weekends. Yeah, and if I'm out and about, like if I'm doing errands, I always have to grab a book. Yeah, I read everywhere, but I also read at home. Obviously, right now everything's going to be at home. Do you eat while reading? Not very often, because I do not like messes on my books, and also like I feel like I'm like it's cumbersome. Like, how do you do this and this? I don't know. It just seems I'm not always that talented. If anything, I'll usually do I have I have a kickstand on my Kindle, so if I do eat while I'm reading, I usually use my Kindle with the kickstand so it stands up while I read when I eat. But usually for when I'm eating, I actually prefer to watch TV. Happens, but not very often. Do you have a certain place at home for reading? This is actually where the books are, is like a little bit more of an office space, so I don't have, and where I'm working from home right now. So I don't really have a comfy area by the bookshelves, although that is the goal to have at some point. So I typically read in the living room. We have a recliner, a couch, and then like a love seat. So reclining love seat. So I'll take a trip in all three, depending on my mood, depending on when I get comfy, depending on if I watch TV, usually I'll be on the couch and then I start reading on the love seat, usually if I want to enjoy sunshine, because a little sunshine is better on that side. And then in recliner, sometimes just if I happen to already be in the recliner. So it varies on the day on which couch I'm going to be on. And then the bedroom. And then I'm in bed when I usually read at night or in the morning. Do you read one book or several at a time? I used to be of the one book at a time all the time, didn't read more than one book at a time. And now I read all the books all the time. I'm in the middle of perpetually in the middle of several books at a time. I just realized that I wasn't reading as much as I wanted to be, and I decided that I needed to delve into other formats to really diversify what I was reading. Because usually when it's normal life and not quarantine, is, I'm working and on the go. And sometimes for my job, I'll have to drive long distances. So it helps to have an audiobook for that kind of thing, and I just get more read if I do a combination of audiobooks, Kindles, and physical books. I just get more read, and I've noticed that in the last 3 years or so that I have higher read numbers at the end of a year if I do multiple formats. So yeah, I'm always in the middle of several books. I know a lot of people can't do that, and they always have a hard time about where they left off and which book. I don't usually have that problem. I do if I ditch a book halfway through, which sometimes I do, and not necessarily because it's bad, but just because I get distracted and I want to read something else. Sometimes I'll have to like go back and be like, okay, what happened? And reread it from there if it's been like a few months since I picked it up. But normally no. I can keep track of them all. I usually don't do more than 3. I usually have an audiobook, a Kindle, a book, and a physical book. But lately in quarantine I've been like all over across the board. So now I have like maybe 4 Kindle books open, and it's getting probably a little excessive now. So I'm getting a little bit lost in which is which. If there's similar storylines, usually I try to keep, if I'm doing different formats, I usually try to keep them diverse. Kindle's mostly like my romance and some YA. Physical, I'll usually do what's on my bookshelves, which is romance and YA. But audiobooks, I'll usually do something different. I'll do a memoir, I'll do a nonfiction, I'll do an adult contemporary that's not necessarily romance or literary fiction. Something that I don't necessarily want to sit through, but something I want to read, if that makes sense. Can you just stop reading, or do you have to stop after a certain number of pages or at the end of a chapter? Okay, so here we go. No, I can't just stop reading. Like, if that was always a problem growing up as a child, I would like be the child of, oh, hang on, okay, I'll be right there. Like, that was me. So, and then not show up in time for dinner. I have to get a place where I comfortably can stop. Sometimes that's at the end of a chapter, sometimes it's in the middle of a chapter, sometimes it's at the end of a chapter, and then like I flip forward a few chapters just to know what's happening next, and then I can finally put it down and get on with my day. So I am a flip forward person, like a skim forward person. I won't skim, and sometimes I skim to the end, not gonna lie. But then that literally helps me be able to physically put the book down so I can do what I need to do for whatever reason. It just depends on like how the plotting is going, how the pacing is going, and how like invested I am to knowing what's going to happen next. But there are definitely books that are almost impossible for me to put down. I have to skim for like 100 pages to be like, okay, and now I can put it down and finally go to bed. So it just varies and depends. Number 6, how do you mark your spot? I know you shouldn't be doing this. I read with a book jacket often. A lot of people don't. If it's got a book jacket, I do this. I do that. I don't know. It's convenient, made for me bookmark. I hardly ever, ever, ever read without the book jacket. That's just weird. I don't know why. I like having the cover. I like being able to feel it and look at it. If it doesn't, I do use a bookmark. I have, as any reader would, I have several. I used to be a dog page turner, corner person. I learned better. I don't do that very often. The only times I ever do that is if like there's a particular like quote that I really, really like, then I'll dog ear it just as like and I know I'm going to keep the book just to be like, okay, this passage like meant something if I don't have tabs on handy. But normally if I do have tabs on handy, or if I'm annotating, then I use all the tabs. Do you read out loud or silently in your head? I mean, I've read out loud before. So my college was a liberal arts college, and one of the things that we had was we had classes called seminar. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that, but for us, seminar was reading old classic books that not necessarily that were always fiction, but sometimes philosophy. And we went through a variety of genres. So there was some things that I had to read that were really dense and really hard to think about in your head. There was a few of them that I actually, when my roommate wasn't around, because reading out loud to my roommate would have been weird, but I actually read them out loud to be able to process them better. And back in the day, a very long time ago, when I used to write myself, I would read my own stories out loud, and that would actually help me as I'm reading it, would help me see grammar errors and see and hear how a sentence doesn't sound right. Yes, reading out loud has its place. And audiobooks obviously are great when someone else narrates them and not me. But mostly I'm reading silently to myself. Although silently in my head, not necessarily. My husband points this out all the time. I will like follow the facial expressions and gestures of my characters while I'm reading. So if somebody gasps, I gasp. If somebody holds their breath and releases the breath they didn't know they were holding, I release the breath I didn't know I was holding. I breathe really weird while I read, apparently. I'll mouth the words sometimes if I'm following along. This is if I'm like really deep into the book, and like then I start doing weird things like that, which is why I'm really self-conscious about filming myself reading. Next question is multitasking. Do you listen to music or the TV while reading? Absolutely not. No, do not do that nonsense. No way. Because reading to me, even though I'm doing it silently, the words in my head are running through my head. So if I had like noise of a TV show that I had to follow with the words in my head while I'm reading, absolutely not. I cannot process those two noises. Nope, 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 nope. So I do know that when I'm reading, my husband will be in our second bedroom, which we call the study, and he'll have his computer games on or podcasts on or things that he'll listen to, which is fine because that's like, it's just noise to me. Like I can drown it out unless it's like too loud or the podcast just gets a little bit too like rambunctious. Then I kind of have to tell him to turn the volume down. But mostly and music, no, unless I do instrumental, which why would I do instrumental? I'd rather just have silence when I read. Next question is, do you read ahead or even skip pages? Well, I kind of mentioned that. Yeah, I do skim ahead. I don't necessarily skip pages. Like I won't like go like start and then be like, all right, what's happening at the end? Like, no, that's just nonsense. I mean, you can. I feel like that's a chaotic evil thing, isn't it? I can't read that way because then I want to see how they got there. So that's why I usually skim ahead. And I won't always skim ahead to the end. Unless I'm like 3/4 done, then I might skim ahead at the end a little bit, just to see where things are going and get an impression about, oh, okay, this is how it's going to end. Question number 10 is break the spine or keep it like new. You know, I'm not against breaking the spine. I don't purposely go out of my way to break a spine. I would try to keep it as new as much as possible, but if the spine breaks, I'm okay with it because it means that I read it and I enjoyed it, and that's never a bad thing. And that's how I feel about it. I don't think breaking now, you have to be careful with breaking some spines because sometimes if they're older books or if you reread them constantly and breaking the spine starts for pages to falling out, then obviously that's a problem. Number one, I don't reread books that often for that to happen. Although it's amazing my Ella Enchanted stood the test of time. And number two, again, I still don't think that's a bad thing because it means it was well loved. Question number 11 is, do you write in your books? So when I was in college, when I was an English major, I did write and underline and wrote little comments, annotated my books because I was writing papers. And so I realized that when I was writing papers and having to look for the quotes that I was trying to find to be able to support my arguments that I was making in my papers, it's way too hard to do that and not underline lines so I could be able to quote myself properly. So I did that in college. For entertainment, though, I don't necessarily. I'll do that a little bit in my Kindle. I'll do a little bit in my Kindle because it's not marking a book. And most of my Kindle books I'm not going to reread anyways. And then it's kind of fun because then my Goodreads will save them. So I'll be able to look at my Goodreads and look at my saved quotes that I highlighted. And usually there's like not very many, maybe 2, 3, 5 at the most. I do have some future things planned where I'm probably going to start my annotating again, which I'm not going to delve into what that is. That's a special project. But I do not use pen. If I underline anything in a physical book, I use pencil. That's the fun reading habits book tag. Now you know a little bit more about my reading habits and how I read and what I do. How do you read the things? What are some of your answers to your questions? Do you read? Do you write in your books? Why? Do you break the spine or do you keep it like new? I want to know some answers and some of the things and habits that you do, or maybe some really off the wall habits. Please tell me in the comments. And if you like what you saw, if you like my video, please subscribe, hit bells and comments and liking things. And yes, that'd be much appreciated. Follow me on all the social medias down below. And again, thank you so much for watching. I'm happy you're here and I appreciate you being here. And I will see you again soon. Bye.